This is my copy of the Beatles collection, which was a box set. It's called the Blue Box set of all of the Beatles LPs that were released on Parlophone Records. It's called BC13. Kind of hard to see there. There it is right there. That's the Parlophone Records symbol. And it comes in this blue box with their signatures on the front. Now, I got this in, I think, late 86 or maybe early 87. And I was just getting into the Beatles, and I wanted to get all the UK albums. Because even though I live in America, I had read Ray Coleman's biography of John Lennon called Lennon. And the discography in the back of the book was all UK pressings, not the American releases, which until 1987 were not as readily available in America, because in 1987 the Beatles albums were finally released on CD, and for the CD issues they released only the UK albums, not the US versions on Capitol Records, which a whole generation of Beatles fans grew up with in America, and those were their versions of the albums. But these were the UK albums, which is what I wanted to get. And so it comes in this case. It's kind of hard to see, it's so big. There's all the records. And I didn't know that much about them. Now, I actually didn't leave the records in this case. I kept the case, put it in a closet back in 87. But I had the albums out, and I didn't think anything of like keeping everything all together like this, keeping it as one set, because I just figured these were the albums. So I pulled the albums out. And I didn't know about, until going on YouTube recently, that you could learn about how these the pressings of these albums. You know, it looks just like a 1963 pressing of their first album, Please Please Me, for example. But you pulled out the sleeve. You can see mine is kind of falling apart here. But in the fine print, where it says Made in Great Britain, right there it says 486. Which means April 1986 is when this pressing was made. There's the actual Parlophone record. Now, and these records are kind of rough now, because these are the records that I played to death back in the 1980s and 90s. Without any thought of, collectability or anything like that. Now, one interesting thing is that with this record, I didn't have, at some point I lost the original sleeve, so I just used another sleeve I had. And so this is from an Atlantic Records album. Back then they would have the sleeve, so this is back when see, Led Zeppelin 3 came out. So this is not the original, but at some point the original was in there when I bought it, but I misplaced it or whatever. I didn't have a thought of keeping the inner sleeves. I didn't think the inner sleeves were important back then. I just thought these were the records, So there's this one here. Again, you can see the date right there. This says March 1986. On the sleeve. Again, you have the Parlophone Records thing there. But these were great to get, because all in one fell swoop, you got the entire Beatles discography, and you got it in the correct format. You got the UK versions of it. Now, it has every album except Magical Mystery Tour, because in the UK at that time, Magical Mystery Tour wasn't available as an album. It had been released as an EP, a double EP. And so that's why it was not issued with them. Here's Beatles for Sale. And again, you have this is 186, which is January 1986. If we can get that in there better. But so that helps kind of put a date on when, these were made. So these were current when I bought this in, like I said, it was either late 86 or early 87. These were the current pressings of these albums. And I don't know how much. I asked my mom, to buy it for me back then. I was just a teenager, like around 16 years old. That says 486, but I think it was somewhere over $100 back then. But I don't remember because it was a long time ago. So apparently these are still available. You can still buy them basically for a little over $100, and it's a good way to get all the records. You could spend more, going to Walmart and buying Rubber Soul on LP and spending like $20 just for that, a modern pressing of Rubber Soul. Or you could get one from the 1980s, and it's sort of the original, the original mixes. It's not remastered. It's not a digital copy pressed onto vinyl. It's the original analog versions. Let's see what Revolver says. I'm not even sure if this is the original sleeve that came with it, because I was switching out sleeves when I was, younger. That looks like it says, hard to see there, January 86. So they're all from around the same time. I think the Rarities one in here, at the very end, there's a Rarities album that is basically just a collection of some of the singles and B-sides and things like that. And I think that one is from like November 85. Here's Sgt. Pepper. And again, they're all the same records that came, the original releases. There has the Sgt. Pepper fold-out thing in there. Let's put that in there. Whoops. The lyrics on the back. And the White Album, my favorite Beatles album. There's no numeral or anything like that, but it does have the Beatles on there, but you can barely read it, I think the American version of it, the Capitol version, at least the one that was available in the 80s, it was actually typed on there, but this is just basically the impression of the word. And there's the inside. And again, it comes with all the original stuff, the posters, the photos of the band and so forth. Here, this is hard to get out, but there's I love the Apple label. And then on the reverse side is the cut apple. And again, like I said, these are kind of rough around the edges. I played these a lot with no thought of, collecting, or certainly not of selling them or anything like that. I plan to hang on to these. These were sort of a thing to keep for life, really. I wonder what the inside of the Yellow Submarine looks like. There it is right there. Yellow Submarine. And we have Abbey Road. Take a look at that. This says February 1986. Now it's funny about this Abbey Road that, this is back in the day. I was I would play records backwards just by, the neat and the bad for records, especially for this one. Because I remember, I think it was during Here Comes the Sun, I just wanted to hear what it sounded like backwards. In case, you never know, there might be some messages. And so then, now ever since then, when I play this record, which I haven't done in years, but whenever I would put the needle drop it on the groove, before the song would start, there would be a squeaking noise. It would go like a little high-pitched whine, and then the song would start. And it was sort of like I ruined the sound of the record because I abused it by playing the record backwards. So, although it's fun to do that, I don't recommend it for the preservation of the sound of the record. And then we have their last album to be released, Let It Be. There's a parlophone symbol in there. Again, another, this one is 486, so again it's April 1986. And we have the Apple labels. Now see, one of the cool things about these, with these Apple labels, when I was buying records, new records in the shops in the 1980s and 1986 and 1987, I would go into the record store and say I'd buy John Lennon's Imagine or the Plastic Ono Band or any other of the solo albums. And by that time, Capitol Records had already replaced the Apple symbol, which kind of takes away some of the... in fact, even like the White Album and things like that, you would buy a new copy of it on Capitol Records, and it would have the modern Capitol label on it. The Apple logo would be gone, which was kind of takes some of the nostalgic fun out of it. Now here's the Rarities album, which it says up here, sampler album not for sale. And it would just have these songs, Across the Universe, Yes It Is. Yes It Is was a B-side. This Boy was a B-side. The Inner Light was a B-side. I'll Get You was the B-side of She Loves You. Thank You Girl was the B-side of From Me to You. Come Give Mir Deine Hand was the German single of I Wanna Hold Your Hand. You Know My Name, Look Up the Number was the B-side of Let It Be. Sie liebt dich was the German version of She Loves You. Rain was the B-side of Paperback Writer. She Is a Woman was the B-side of I Feel Fine. Then you have Matchbox, I Call Your Name, Slow Down, and Long Tall Sally were the 4 songs that were on the 1964 Long Tall Sally EP. And I'm Down was the B-side of Help, and Bad Boy was a song that Larry Williams cover that was released for the American market, and eventually in 1966, the following year, was released on a collection of Beatles Oldies, a greatest hits album that was released in late 66 in the UK, but not in the US. Anyways, there's the songs. Let's take a look at it. Oh, this one, there it is right there. It's upside down. So this one says 1185. November 1985 was the pressing on this one. And there's the side 1. And side 2. And like I said, you may notice I'm being a little rough with them, but if anyone has any objection about it, they're about 30 years too late, because that's how I've been playing in these records for years, since 1987, early 87 or late 86, whenever it was that I bought them. And that's that. That's my Beatles collection. Of course, I've got Magical Mystery Tour and the some of the U.S. albums as well that I've since bought. But I bought them, I think, right around the same time as I bought this back then. Anyways, just wanted to show you how I got all my Beatles albums through the Beatles collection. Something worth checking out if you're interested in getting all the Beatles U.K. albums as originally released in the U.K. On vinyl. Thanks for watching.